Well, boils and ghouls, it's your old pal, John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper. And I want to welcome my good fiends of the Horror Heals podcast. Is horror good for mental wellness? But of course it is. I delight in the delicious deaths of pitiful people on the silver screen. So get ready for a hell of a good time with my new fiends, Corey and Kendall, on the Horror Heals podcast.
Welcome back, Horror Heliacs. If you caught part one, you already know we're here with the man behind the magic, or should I say the mayhem, of Monster Mania, Dave Hagen. Last time we took a deep dive into how Monster Mania was born out of love for horror, family, and those legendary movie palace weekends with Dave's dad. Today, we're diving even deeper. We'll be talking about the heart of the convention, the awesome staff, the Monster Mania family, and how horror cons like these are so much more than just a weekend of scares. They're a place where introverts, horror buffs, everyone in between can feel right at home.
So I want to talk about your volunteers because I don't think people would argue that they're some of the best in the con scene. Talk about your approach for recruiting volunteers and keeping volunteers and just what the whole camaraderie is like.
It's funny. The staff we have, I think we're up to 130 now. When we started out, it was 20 maybe. The way we recruit them, we first try to go through friends of people already on staff, recommendations. And then we'll do I'll put a post up on Facebook with a link where people can fill out an application. Usually there's a group of us that will set up Zoom interviews now. We started doing that, I guess, about 2 years ago or so, where we actually sit down and interview the people through Zoom, usually in groups of ideally we get maybe between 6 to 10 at a time, just so we get an idea the person's like. And you never really know until, showtime comes, but it helps weed out the ones that we don't want. But, and I always emphasize, look, I've been to conventions where you think, the Gestapo was running it, where you're getting constantly yelled at and pushed around and things like that. We try to take a more familiar, family approach to it, where we try to keep people informed of what's going on. Unfortunately, you're always going to have a situation where Robert Englund takes, 30 minutes to talk to just two people, and you've got a line, right, super long, so not everybody's going to meet them. So, that's always not a great experience. But the staff we bring on, our number one goal is to try to make everybody as comfortable as possible, give them as much information as we possibly can throughout the process, accommodate people if they got to, step out of line to go to the bathroom, or if they've been standing in line too long, they have a bad knee, they need to sit down, whatever those situations. We kind of do it first through recommendations and then through these Zoom interviews. But, the staff we have, it's just phenomenal. We have so many great people in so many different positions. I'm really blessed with the group that we have. And they've formed their own groups where they'll go out axe throwing one night, or go to dinner at an Italian restaurant another night, things like that.
And here's some advice for attendees, not just for Monster Mania, but for any convention. I've always lived by this. You catch more flies with honey.
Yeah.
There have been a few situations where I've asked a favor of your staff members, but this is after I've, kind of know them a little bit, you see, the ones that you like and you're always hugging and stuff like that. But they've been so accommodating, and for because unfortunate things happen during the con, and they really do, as far as they can possibly help you, they will. And someone I'm hoping to have on the show, and she's agreed to, we just haven't booked a time yet, but Donna Jean is very, very popular, staff members. And when I reached out to her, she's like, yeah, I think your topic, Horror Heals, definitely, applies to me. When she was sick and getting out of the hospital, she said, Dave was the first person to say, look, you need to come here and be with your family and heal. And that touched me.
Yeah, that's that's some of the behind the scenes stuff that people never get to see. It's
Yeah.
it. I know that it means a lot to me, and it means a lot to other people. So
Yeah.
when situations like that happen, like we had somebody that was in a severe car accident. I got in
Mm.
touch with and said, "Hey, look, man, we'll get you down here." I always try to say it's like an extended family,
Yeah.
and we try to treat it that way.
Yeah. Well, it is. And I mean, you see that all the time, on posts in the Monster Mania family. And I know you mentioned, the posts about people that are, ticked off about one thing or another that are like daggers to the heart. But what I always see, like when there's one of those, there's 100 comments defending Monster Mania and defending you and everything. It's like you're not gonna be able to please everybody all the
Yeah.
time.
And and like you said before, things happen. Like we don't sit there and try to figure out, how can we screw things up today? Like the
Right.
boys and I, after every show, we have a meeting, my two sons and I, Dave and Doug. And then after we have that meeting, we have a meeting with our chiefs of staff, usually through Zoom, fill them in on what the boys meeting was about. And then the heads of staff have their own meeting before we all meet together. So they fill us in on what their meeting was about. And it's like we're always constantly trying to solve problems and trying to make things easier as much as we can. We review everything,
Yeah. There's definitely a Monster Mania family. And I know you're a bit of an introvert, but you're the dad of this Monster Mania family. You've got
Don't tell
thousands,
anybody.
thousands of kids. What does it mean to you just knowing that like people are coming, time after time, year after year, because this is their vacation. This is they're coming home. Like they're coming to see their family. They're coming to heal. They're coming to have that anxiety go away. What does that mean to you?
Oh, it's everything. I mean, that's, going back to this is done in my father's memory. Like I couldn't think of a better way to honor my dad than to have the situation be that way. To be the show that so many people have met their significant other at. To
Yeah.
be the show. Like I've seen parents bring their children who now, and this is a God's honest true story, their children are bringing their children. There was a kid from Deptford, I can remember, came to our first show with his father. He brings his son now. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, like we've been doing this. This is our 21st year. I've seen families grow.
Yeah.
I've seen people get married or live together or, form a permanent bond with somebody for years, and it's just to know that those things might not have happened if we didn't have the show. Like I said, there's no better way, to honor my father. And I was at a party. I think it was like November. One of our staff people, her son was coming home from the Marines, and she had a party. And all these people were at the show. All these people were at the party that I didn't even know from the show. It was like her family and
Mhm.
things. And almost all night long, people were talking to me about Monster Mania. And I left that party, and I was like, some people might. I got to understand how like maybe sports players are, or people in movies, like where they go somewhere and everybody wants to talk about the sport that they play or the
Right.
movie that they
Yeah.
do, or and I left that party that night, and I was like, wow, like it really hit me that Monster Mania is going to be. I don't know. I don't want to sound boisterous or whatever, but like Monster Mania is going to be the legacy that when I'm in the ground, that's what I'm going to be remembered for, whether I like it or not. So I got to make it as good as I can.
Right. Right.
But
Absolutely.
leaving that party that day was like, wow, like I just didn't realize that's my life. That's going to be, what I'm remembered for. It put the onus on me to make sure, we do the very best we can with it.
Absolutely. So one last question. This is what I'm just starting to ask everybody at the end of the interviews. Who is your favorite final girl or final boy?
Oh man, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I guess I would say, boy, it's tough. It's between Heather Langenkamp, Nancy Thompson. It's
Yeah.
between her because she goes from her character evolves in that movie so much
Yeah.
from put upon, almost introverted type of character who goes on to, you know, defeat Freddy. And for the same reason, I would say Adrian King Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Jamie Lee
Laurie
Curtis.
Strode.
Yeah,
Strode.
Jamie Lee Curtis is Laurie Strode. Like, it would have to be between those three. My first instinct, honestly, is to think back to, I started going through the Universal Monsters, because my favorite era of films would either be the Universal Monster era or the Hammer horror films. I was born in '59, so I grew up in the '60s. I was one of the people they call monster kids. All those Aurora models and all that stuff. Like, that's my favorite period of time of films. But I don't know if there's any final girls that really survive that.
Right.
So yeah, I would say if I had to pick one of those three, I'd probably say Nancy Thompson.
Okay.
Just because I think hers is the most growth that the character does from start to finish. But boy, it's really close between the three.
Yeah, and I'm somehow going to figure out how to keep a running tally going. But so
Who's yours?
Yesterday's guest was Laurie Strode. Mine was Nancy. Yeah,
Why,
that's who, like,
why do you pick Nancy?
I think that, like what you said, like the growth that she grows through, and like how she sort of just became like a leader out of necessity. Like she was the one that was going to have to defeat this evil, and she rose to the occasion.
So, question for you: you're not getting away. Deserted island. You get to take 3 movies to a deserted island with you. What are you taking?
Okay, first one, and this is going to be a controversial one. The very first one that came to mind is Exorcist 3.
I love Exorcist 3.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is because, people say all the time, like, my niece is just getting into horror. She's like, what's your favorite horror movie? And it's like, that's a tough question. I can tell you, like, the horror movies that I can rewatch over and over and over again and never get tired of. So Exorcist 3, Halloween 3, and I got to go with Original Exorcist. I think those are the 3 that are like immediately jumping out, because I could watch those. And then if somebody were to like airdrop a 4th, I got to go with Silence of the Lambs, because I'll watch that one.
Oh, wow.
Year. And that falls in, I don't know, is that a horror movie? Is that a
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. When you come down to it, it is. That's interesting.
I know there's some people that are going to hate me for the Halloween 3 and Exorcist 3.
I really like Halloween 3. I mean, I remember when it came out, it got a lot of grief at the time because everybody was expecting to see Michael Myers and he wasn't in it. But, for what it is, I really enjoy it, And The Exorcist, you said. I remember when The Exorcist came out. I remember when The Exorcist came out. I remember when Star Wars came out. I'm old. I remember when the Christopher Reeve Superman came out. This was times when, like in Philly, where I lived when all those movies came out, people would wait in 3-block long lines to get in a theater. I remember when The Exorcist came out, man, people were fainting in the movie theater. People were scared to death, like at what they were seeing. And I saw it. I think I was 16 when I saw it. It shook me. It was like the first or second R-rated movie I had ever seen. I was like, oh my God. Like the things that were going on. Now, like, people look at it and say, oh, it really isn't that scary. How could people react that way? But man, for its time, and still to this day, I don't know if I can watch The Exorcist at night in the house alone and go to bed. And you know what? The scariest scene for that for me is, and it's a scene that people don't even think of. When he has that dream when his mother had died, and he has that dream where his mom is like coming up the subway steps, and then she turns around and goes back down. I don't know what it is about that scene. I'm getting chills talking about it. Phew, man, there's just something about that scares the hell out of me.
I think Exorcist 3 is so special to me because it was my quote-unquote birthday movie, and I'm an August birthday, so like
August
traditionally,
what?
11.
Oh, okay. I'm July. So you're a Leo too?
I am a Leo. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, I that makes a lot of sense. So like I had a friend that had birthday at the beginning of the summer, so like his birthday movie was always like Batman with Michael Keaton.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like at the tail end of the summer when they used to just like dump stuff at the end of the summer, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think this would do very good. So Exorcist 3 was my birthday movie, and we were only 15 at the time, so my mom had to buy tickets for these boys to go to an R-rated movie.
Yep.
And my friends hated it. I loved it, and I'm like, what is to hate? Like, it's got one of the best jump scares.
It sure does.
That you just do not see coming. I mean,
yes.
It's like,
and man,
now
I don't know if like they hit the music, the
Yes.
Like, boy, man, what a
Violent.
perfect scene, man.
Right.
The definition of a jump scare. Whew.
And the cast is fantastic. I mean, George C. Scott is so amazing in that. And
Yeah.
Yeah, I could just watch that, over and over and over.
Yeah.
I've written pretty extensively about The Exorcist because I'm from St. Louis, and that's where the inspiration, came from. The boy that was, they did the exorcism in there. And when I was in college, I had an uncle who was a Jesuit priest. He was the president of St. Louis University High School, and he was able to get me on the phone with an elderly priest who was a Jesuit student at the time that was part of the exorcism, the actual exorcism.
Wow, really?
Yeah. That was
what did he say?
He recalled this story like they were, because the kid would like be okay at times and then not okay at times. So this was a time he was out, and he was taking him out to the park, and all of a sudden the kid just darts off and is about to like jump off a hill that probably would have killed him. He said it was several stories that like he would have tumbled down, hit rocks and stuff, and he had to tackle the kid to get him to stop from jumping off.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was wild. I vividly remember that conversation. It was in the.
Was he part of the exorcism group? Like he took part in the exorcism?
He took
oh
part,
my
yeah.
goodness! God, I would love to hear that conversation.
Yeah, it was. I think I recorded it, but I don't know if that tape exists anymore. I've just got my notes and stuff and the articles that I wrote about it. But yeah, that was pretty wild.
If you can, please send me if there's online links to them. I would love to read them.
Absolutely.
I love the true story of that.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm doing we'll launch before the end of the year, but we're creating some free downloadable ebooks and stuff for the site. And the first one we're going to do is for The Exorcist because of the anniversary and everything. So I've interviewed Linda Blair, and I've, written pretty extensively about the whole history of it. And so I'm going to have our designer turn that into an ebook, with images and stuff like that. But I'll definitely send it to you.
Yeah, definitely, man. And if I can help you, promote it in any way, man, just let me know. More than happy
Appreciate
to.
And there you have it, folks, the Monster Mania community where horror and heart come together. Big thanks to Dave for sharing all the behind-the-scenes stories that prove this con is more than just a blood-splattered good time. It's a family, a safe space, and for a lot of people, a second home. So to all our listeners out there who find comfort in the creepiness, stay tuned for more Monster Mania stories down the line. And remember, when someone asks, is horror good for mental wellness? You answer, of course it is. The Horror Heals podcast is produced by How the Cow Ate the Cabbage, LLC.